Luke notes that. And as they're following Jesus on the way to Jerusalem, Jesus turns around and he quite randomly just blurts this out. Now, it's a large crowd, so he'd have to talk kind of loud. They didn't have microphones back then. So imagine Jesus walking on his way to Jerusalem. There's a large crowd following him. And he turns around and says, whoa, 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 wait a second. I want you to know that if you don't hate your mom and dad and spouse and children and even your own life, then I don't want you following me. And if you're going to follow me, be prepared to take up your cross like those criminals and die a slow, painful, shameful death. If you're going to follow me. In fact, if you're going to follow me, I want you to know that you got to give up everything, and the kingdom has got to have your only allegiance. Great sales pitch, Jesus. And see, Jesus knows that most of this crowd, we know this from studying ancient Judaism, most of this crowd, there's been a buzz about Jesus. He's been doing these miracles and stuff, and so there are people who are reporting that he might be the Messiah. So they're following this potential Messiah to Jerusalem. And what we know about first century Jerusalem is that most of these folks would have been thinking that when Jesus goes to Jerusalem, he's going to kick some Roman behind. He's going to get the Romans off their back. And so they're looking for a Messiah who would defeat their enemies. They're looking for a Messiah who would solve their many, many political issues that they're always trying to loop Jesus in on. They're looking for a Messiah who will restore the dignity and value and honor of their holy nation. And so they're looking for a Messiah who's going to bless them. They're looking for a Messiah who's going to put more food on the table and give them more freedom and more honor. And no, that's not a carnal evil thing. These are sincere people because they think that that's what God wants. Of course, God is for the Jewish nation, and we are Jewish people. And so for God to liberate us and to bless us and restore our nation and solve our issues, well, that's good for us, and it's good for God because we know that God's on our side. And since Jesus, it looks like Jesus is going to be the Messiah, well, then we're all for Jesus. And so what he's got is a large crowd of cheerleaders behind him saying, go, Jesus, hooray, Jesus, we're for you, Jesus. Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. And Jesus turns to them and no doubt dampens their enthusiasm a little bit. See, they want to put Jesus and the whole kingdom stuff into their theological box. And what Jesus does is basically says, you know what, if you're going to be on board with this program, you don't put God and the kingdom in your box. You rather fit into his box. He calls the shots, not you. And so Jesus turns to them and gives this very strong, crowd-thinning out message. What impresses me is that Jesus clearly, is not interested in size and the bigness of a crowd for the sake of the size and bigness of the crowd. He's not very interested in the enthusiasm as an end in and of itself. Got a large crowd. He's Mr. Popularity right now. He could ride this. He's really successful by ordinary world standards. It'd be easy to say, man, God is really moving. Look at that crowd. Look at the enthusiasm. Man, what a support. But Jesus doesn't seem to be very impressed with that. He's not interested in lowering the bar to get as many people in the door as possible, sign on the dotted line, and pray the sinner's prayer. The only thing that matters for Jesus, clearly, is that he's doing God's will, the will of his Father. That is the kingdom of God, to be under the dome in which God reigns. The only thing that matters for him is being faithful to the call of the Father and inviting other people in on that call. But to invite other people in on that call means you're inviting them in on that call, not something else that maybe would please them a little more, would attract more people. No, the only thing that matters, the success for him, is doing the will of God. How big it is doesn't matter. How small it is doesn't matter. Whether the crowd's enthusiastic doesn't matter. Whether they're dull as can be, that doesn't matter. The success is not what the world calls success, but rather just being faithful to the call of God. Carrying out God's will on earth as it is in heaven. And if that produces great crowds, wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. But if it leaves you all alone as it did Jesus, so be it. If the crowd's really enthusiastic, wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. But if they're not, well then, they turned hostile to you, well then, so be it. The only criteria that counts is doing the will of God. And so Jesus turns to this crowd and he puts all the cards on the table. I want you to know what you're getting into if you're going to follow me. If you're going to follow me, it's going to be about God and his kingdom. It's not going to be about you. If you're going to follow me, you can't try to put me and the kingdom in your box. Rather, you've got to reorientate your life so that you're in the kingdom box. And you got to know that I haven't come, sorry to disappoint you, to defeat your enemies. Rather, I've come to invite you in on a kingdom where you're going to learn to love your enemies. And I'm sorry I didn't come to solve all of your political problems, but I did come to invite you in on a kingdom that transcends all your political problems. I'm sorry I'm not here to restore and advance the interests of your sacred nation. Rather, I've come to invite you in on a kingdom that transcends all nations and transcends all nationalism. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I haven't come to make your life a little nicer and a little sweeter. In fact, if you follow me, you've got to be prepared that your life might get a whole lot more miserable. But I've come to invite you into a kingdom and to a banquet table where if you'll feast on this, your perspective on your life troubles will be altogether different. And however miserable it might get, you can have a joy unspeakable that is full of glory. He puts all the cards on the table. If you're going to enter into this kingdom and follow me, then you got to know that God's got to have be your only allegiance. No competition here. If you're going to follow me, be prepared to live a sacrificial life that may feel to you like a long, slow, painful death. You may, in fact, be ridiculed by others in your culture because you're going to look different. It may feel shameful to you at times because you're going to look different. And you got to be prepared to give up everything. In fact, you have to give up everything if you're going to enter into this kingdom, because it's all going to come under the reign of God. It's all going to belong to God. This is a strong teaching. This is a harsh teaching. This is not a popular teaching. And so Jesus pauses and he says, I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it. You don't build a tower before you estimate what it's going to cost, and you don't go to war until you really assess whether you can win this thing. So also, if you're going to embark on this journey, count the cost. There's a cost that you have to pay. It's not a popular message. Eventually, it would turn the entire crowd away when he illustrates it with his own life. But that didn't bother Jesus, because the only success for Jesus, the only criteria of success, was doing the will of the Father, was carrying out the will of the Father. It's about manifesting what it looks like when God reigns in a human life. Size doesn't matter. Popularity doesn't matter. Getting as many people in the door as possible, that doesn't matter. What the world calls success doesn't matter. Doing God's will, carrying the cross, giving up all for the cause of Christ, that's the only thing that matters. That's the saltiness of the kingdom. And Jesus was entirely unwilling to lower the bar or to give it a little more popular gloss in order to keep the crowds. It just didn't matter. Now, here's what concerns me, folks. It seems to me that a good deal of American Christianity does just the opposite of what Jesus does. It seems to me that a good deal of American Christianity, in fact, looks very much like the crowd looked. A good deal of American Christianity tries to make Jesus and the gospel and the call to enter in the kingdom something sellable, something marketable, something attractive, something appealing. To a large extent, in American Christianity, we don't put all the cards on the table before someone signs up for this. In fact, in many segments of American Christianity, they don't even know that there are cards to put on the table. And in many segments of American Christianity, we don't tell people to count the cost before they enter in on this. In fact, in many segments of American Christianity, they're not even aware that there is a cost to count. And in many segments of American Christianity, we don't tell people that you have to give up everything to enter into the kingdom. In fact, in many segments of American Christianity, this is one of our sales pitches. We tell people you can keep your everything and we'll add to it. Jesus will help you add to it. As wonderful and as nice as your life already is, well, it'll become even nicer if you'll just make Jesus a part of it and join our church. And in fact, if you become a Jesus follower at our church, well, Jesus will help you defeat your national enemies. And he by all means is here to restore our righteous nation. And he'll help us fight our national causes, and he'll solve all of our political questions. We vote Jesus around here, yes, sir, indeed. If you come to our particular brand of this marketable kingdom, well, then you got to know we got good parking space. And you get the music just the way you like it. We got great children's programs, and you get to have coffee cup holders in your pews that are nicely padded so your bum-bums don't hurt. I mean, we sell the thing. It's attractive, and we compete with other churches because there's only so many sinners to go around, and we all want a lion's share of the portion. So we say, come over here, and we'll make it sweeter and nicer and more beneficial for you, which is exactly what the crowds that were following Jesus wanted. which is exactly what Jesus rebuked.